we demand the script of how we see love. And all of us over the years develop a script of how we see love. And some of the scripts, and I'm not going to play out any scripts, right? But one I think of in this day and age is, what is the number one animated movie about 2 years ago? Frozen? Yes, Frozen. Yeah, cool. All right. Name me the number one character. Anna. Number two? Olaf. Okay, we'll throw it. And number three? Elsa. Okay, we got Anna, Elsa, and Olaf. Number four, we can't remember. You know what? The top, and that was Frozen number 2, wasn't it? Then it was Frozen 1. So if you have kids, as like I do, they saw Frozen 1 10,000 times, they saw Frozen 2 20,000. Okay, waiting for it to come on DVD or something. Okay, so it was what you call it, synchronicity. Okay, so there's this Frozen movie. You had number 1 and you had number 2, and you've had the kids of the last. If they're born if they're up to 10 years old, that's been their movie. Okay, they've got Olaf dolls walking around. They got Anna and Elsa stickers and bags. I think the merchandise made more money than the movie. But what's fascinating is and kids have watched it in this day and age. You can watch it at 2 in the morning to get your kid to sleep. You can, probably kids took up ice skating and figured out ranges and even want to go visit that place in Norway. Okay? But amazingly, there's a theme to that movie. And one of the fundamental themes was love. Your kids' brains are firing and wiring as per how Frozen determined love is. And what was amazing about the 3 main characters you mentioned, Anna, female, Elsa, female, a snow man. Where's the guy? Amazingly, he didn't feature. And most people don't even remember their names. I think one of them is Hans. I think he was a bad guy. I'm not too sure. I think there is a reindeer, right? Somewhere along the line, right? Christoph, yes, now you remind me, right? And there's all the other guys watching it and they're like, they don't feature. Amazing how that wires your brain. You might say, wait a minute, all movies are that way? Or what's wrong with that? Yes, there were strong themes. You can decide what the themes were in terms of the underlying themes that came through. Years ago, Disney made Frozen. They made Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Interestingly, the character they chose for Snow White to play the voice of Snow White had a high-pitched voice singing of Waiting for Prince Charming, happily ever after. There was no necessarily in Frozen 1 a happily ever after ending in terms of a relationship, all right? I'm not sure about Frozen 2, I didn't watch it, right? But what's fascinating is the theme of what children, be it boy or girl, sees as love going forward. And what's fascinating is most older adults have a theme of love that wasn't fulfilled in terms of a script or story of happily ever after in terms of the partner. In fact, it turned out to be a abusive guy sometimes and didn't fulfill the script. I'm not saying abuse is acceptable, definitely not. But at some level, there's disappointment, hurt, because they didn't fulfill the story that was playing out in our heads. And these stories get wired, not just by movies, by the books we read. In fact, nowadays, what's fascinating about this very same books that you read as a kid, that your kid is reading, they kind of nowadays leave out those last 3 words of happily ever after. Because we know life doesn't end when you meet someone. It probably starts. And then that's your horror movie, some will argue. But what's fascinating is how we see relationships. And what happens is we demand of our partners, of our spouses, of our husbands, our wives, of families to fulfill that script, that movie in our minds. We put them on that pedestal, and you better play knight in shining armor or damsel in distress or Darth Vader, whatever your imagination or fantasy might be. And yet the other person is clueless and they've got their own expectation, own wants, own desires, and it creates conflict in a relationship. because we built this spectacle, this script as to what we see. And all we've done is taken what society has thrusted upon us as to how love should be. And some of us go through the ritual, and you hope like hell that the ritual kind of plays out at some level and you kind of connect at another level. Okay? And then after that, given they go through the ritual, you can't keep it up for the rest of your life, and that then leads to the conflict, because we have an expectation that the whole ritual, whole courtship, the whole mating display and all that kind of comes together and plays out for the rest of your life. It kind of may be okay in the first couple of weeks, months, if you're lucky, years, but after that, Prince Charming turns out to be got other issues, okay? And that's where the challenge comes. And therefore, we make demands in terms of a relationship one way or the other. And that's where, be wary though, all we're doing is then compromising on who we are. We're not being authentic to who we are. And a statement I use, love is not when you look in each other's eyes trying to fulfill their contract. Love is when you both look in the same direction, fulfilling maybe some purpose, some truth, some meaning for your life. Your partner, your spouse, your husband, your wife, even your family are there to help you, support you, guide you in your growth as a person. Because sometimes we have this concept of soulmate, that you get me before I even know what I'm thinking, or you kind of, then there's no growth actually. Sadly, with most 99% of relationships, they force you to grow, because what relationships do is they mirror what you feel, think. In fact, with our partners, we'll project what's going on inside and we project it onto them. And we need to then shift in that sense into seeing ourselves on a journey together, getting somewhere together, but recognizing as much as we individuals, we endeavor to be together, to connect, to unite in our journey. But be wary, we put these unconscious demands, the script, the story, on the other person, and therefore push each other apart. There's no harm in playing up to the stories, by the way, because all cultures, societies have what we call archetypes, where we play out these roles. You've heard of a male alpha, he feels the need to beat his chest, right? Men need to feel good about themselves. I'm worthy, I provided, okay? At some level, some may play into a certain type of female archetypes as well, okay? At some level, you may find yourself wanting to maybe have children, brooding, as we may call it. One of the psychologists explained a concept that while a patient was pregnant, she is brooding and she has to build her nest and feel safe. And I found that a very wow concept. I wish someone had told me that while my wife was pregnant, okay? That, that was part of the process, and you kind of have to maybe at some level go and get a twig, and not a twig, but you know what I mean, something to kind of make it all go well, and you need to go and provide. Because at some level, we all have these genetics going back thousands of generations, and we do act like, at some level, caveman and cavewoman in terms of how our instincts come across. Men got this thing of providing, and maybe at some level, a woman provides in a different way, all right? And we then, the problem is though, some of us are not in line or in coherence where we are. Another day we want to act like a 2021 or 2022 kind of human being. The next day we want to retract to Neanderthals, right? Especially men, particularly when we're watching sports or something like that, right? So there's all these kind of challenges that we throw into a relationship. The idea again is being fundamentally aware of who you are, what you bring to the core, observing yourself, witnessing yourself, and how you engage in relationships. No matter what, I will say that fundamentally, regardless, is to have to give the love regardless of what's in the world, yet being aware, regardless of giving the compassion and kindness, because that way you are giving love, compassion, and kindness to yourself. And that allows the world to shift, because by shifting what you project on the world, it shifts what the world is like. Yes, sometimes the world will endeavor to be in a particular toxic, nasty space, you may then need to make a decision whether you stay in that space or move on.